Welcome to Fiona's Food for Life, Cook, Eat, Nourish, Series 2 on YouTube. So Series 1 was all about recipes and tips. There's over 50 different recipes. Please check them out, comment, let me know how you get on. For Series 2, I've decided to do interviews with a whole pile of people that work with food in Ireland. To start off today, for World Diabetes Day, I'm interviewing Siobhan Dee, all about control and reverse type 2 diabetes. Don't forget to listen all the way to the end so that you can see her 3 tips that you can use to improve the health of the nation. Hope you enjoyed and please subscribe. Hey Siobhan, thanks a million for coming to meet me today.
Thank you, Fiona. Thanks for having me.
Great. Would you like to introduce yourself to my audience?
Sure. So my name is Siobhan Dee. I come from Tipperary. I trained as a nurse in the Cork Regional Hospital and now I specialise in type 2 diabetes and helping people to avoid it or reverse it.
Okay, perfect.
In a nutshell.
Yeah. And can you tell us a bit about your career to date?
Sure. So I guess in truth my medical career as I see it really started when I was just turned 14 and my 11-year-old sister was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So in terms of spending a lot of time in hospital, which you did back then, it was the very late 70s, 1979 actually. So things were very different then with diabetes diagnosis, and of course it was really type 1 that was so prominent back then. So this really prompted my interest in healthcare. I studied nursing, as I said, in Cork University Hospital, and then I travelled a huge amount with that, and always of course favouring the patients with diabetes, I guess because I know more about it, and I always felt a bit of empathy when it came to dealing with the families. I think I was valuable to them. So I came back then, I joined the pharmaceutical industry, and very interestingly, the very first drug I ever sold was metformin, which is the entry-level drug for type 2 diabetes. And went on then to a long career in the pharma industry, 14-15 years, where I worked in sales and marketing and eventually as a sales and marketing director, business development director for quite a few years. I was very lucky that I worked in lots of therapy areas that really interested me. And when I left the industry, then I was doing some consulting to various companies, and I was working in one well-known diabetes company who had been traditionally very involved in type 1 diabetes, and they would have produced a lot of insulins, but now they were launching their first drug for type 2, and I was helping them to launch it. And of course, in the background, I had a huge interest always in natural health anyhow, in food as medicine. I'd had a couple of my own health challenges along the way where I really changed my lifestyle and saw the benefits of it. So I always was very interested in that in the background, and I was starting to read a lot of research around type 2 diabetes and the fact that it could be reversed, and there was a very impressive study that had just been done in the States actually by Dr. Neil Bernard, which effectively did show that food is as effective as medicine in type 2 diabetes and that it's reversible. So I was trying to bring some of this information into this project because as it happened, the drug that we were launching, despite the fact there were lots of positives, it obviously positively affected people's blood sugar and that it helped to bring it down, and also it helped with weight loss, which is something that a lot of people with diabetes struggle with. So that was the positives or the benefits, but unfortunately there were a huge amount of side effects and pretty nasty ones. I'm talking about liver cancer, increased risk of liver cancer, pancreatitis, some other cancers, leukemia, and most people would have pretty severe nausea, vomiting, headaches, etc. for the first few weeks. Okay, so I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, okay, so how can we help people to take the lowest possible dose for the shortest amount of time? And to me it made perfect sense that we present to GPs and to the patients that would take this drug a good lifestyle program. So I wanted to train the GPs and I wanted to have something so that everyone that would take this drug would understand how they could manage their own blood sugar in tandem perhaps with taking this drug. But when I presented this, not only to be fair to the company but also to the doctors who were involved in the pre-launch of this drug and lots of diabetes nurses, they were all saying no, people just want the drug, they don't want to know about that. And to some extent I can understand that. If you're told you have type 2 diabetes and you know about the risks, increased risk of heart disease, increased risk of stroke, blindness, amputation, of course you'll take the drug. But I guess I was starting to think, but people aren't being told about the potential complications of this drug and the fact that they can do so much for themselves to avoid these complications. So I had this, I really had this internal conflict every day going to work while I'm working hard to help them launch this drug. In the back of my mind, I'm saying, this isn't what's best for people or for everyone, certainly. So I just had that light bulb moment, I guess, one day where I thought, this is it. I'm finishing, after this project is finished, this is what I'm going to do.
Okay.
So I set up then my online program, which is all about educating people about how they can manage their own blood sugars and all the lifestyle things that feed into type 2 diabetes, because it's not just about food, but obviously food is a huge part of it. So that's what I've been doing since. So that's my career. And I should say, sorry, I'm not saying that I'm anti-drugs, because I'm not. For me, it's really important that you have your blood sugar normalized, however it takes, but it's really about taking as little medication as possible and understanding yourself, what parts of your lifestyle you need to adjust in order to maintain those good blood sugars and ideally reverse it.
Okay. And so November is World Diabetes Month.
That's
Would you
right.
maybe give us a few insights into the figures around diabetes, etc.?
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, in Ireland, we don't have a register,
Okay.
believe it or not. So in Ireland, we say 1 in 12 adults have type 2 diabetes. In some other countries where they do keep a register, where I think we'd have a similar demographic, they are saying 1 in 7, 1 in 8. So there's a bit of conflict around that numbers. It doesn't matter, it's still huge numbers. And every month in Ireland, at least 1,000 people we do know are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes.
Wow.
And about 100 with type 1. So
Would you mind explaining just very briefly what the difference is between type 1 and type 2
For
in
sure.
case people aren't aware?
For sure. So type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease, and it has nothing to do with lifestyle in terms of a diagnosis, okay? The beauty, if you like, of type 1 diabetes is that it's a fairly rapid onset, so you know very quickly that you have it. Your blood sugars, will go up very, very quickly, and you will notice changes. You will go to your doctor.
Okay.
Yeah, and a very typical thing would be that you're extremely thirsty, so drinking, and obviously going to the bathroom a lot and not understanding why. That typically is what takes people to the doctor, and often extreme headache and dizziness, perhaps blurred vision. Type 2 diabetes, 90% of it is probably lifestyle, brought on by lifestyle. Now, some people will have a genetic predisposition, but we don't get it because of our genes, we get it because of our lifestyle, and our lifestyle, if you like, switches on that gene or expresses that gene. The unfortunate thing with type 2 is that it's very slow and insidious. So like I said, type 1 is fast, typically within a couple of weeks. With type 2, a lot of people would have a 3 to even 5 years without realising it. So your blood sugar is creeping slowly up. But unfortunately, having a high blood sugar consistently does do damage, particularly to our small blood vessels. So those tiny blood vessels, backs of your eyes, around your heart, around your kidneys. So this is why so many people, when they're diagnosed already, will have some compromised vision, perhaps some renal kidney problems or heart. So most people already have a complication once diagnosed, but nothing that can't be reversed or certainly helped a lot by normalising your blood sugars.
Okay. And you ran a successful summit there recently. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
I did. So back in June I ran a summit, and really the idea behind that was to get as many thought leaders and some of the global the people, I guess, who are really making a difference and who are ploughing ahead in terms of all the new research that's coming out in diabetes. So I had some amazing speakers, and I should say also some fantastic Irish contributors too. But I had Dr. Ken Pelletier, who spoke about genes. So I mentioned a minute ago the whole talk about genes, because a lot of people are told, oh look, it's in your genes and you're going to get it. So very clearly now the science is showing that that's not the case, and we have power over which genes we express or not. So he's written a book called Change Your Genes, Change Your Life, which I definitely recommend. So he spoke a lot about that in the context of diabetes. I had Bitten Johnson, who again is becoming really a global thought leader around sugar addiction, and the fact that many people have a genuine sugar addiction, and she shared lots of tips in terms of how to deal with that. And she herself is a reformed sugar addict, as well as being addicted to other substances indeed. So she was a fantastic contributor. I had Dominique Kemp, she was talking about a low carb diet and how we switched to a low carb diet. I had Dr. Dave Harper, who has written The Bio Diet, and again talking about ketosis, and that's something actually that's been talked about a lot in the world of diabetes, and there's so many different angles on it, and there's not one solution. I mean, I think this is the important thing to say, and that's why I tried to cover every angle. Actually, I also had one of the lead investigators from the Newcastle study, and this was a really fantastic study that was done in the UK in 59 GP surgeries, and so it was a very real study in the context of people just going in and out of their surgeries, but they were given a very low calorie diet, and they had phenomenal results in terms of the amount of people that reversed their type 2 diabetes. So there's lots and lots of ways to manage this. You can do a low calorie approach, you can do a high fat, low carb approach, you can do Mediterranean diet. There's lots of ways to reverse your diabetes. So I would say to anyone, don't think there's only one way. And
Sure.
you know, I tried that and it didn't work. You know, it's important to find something that fits into your lifestyle and maybe into your own values and your ethics. You know, some people, for instance, want to be vegan, and you know, they're told to have a high fat diet, and it's a bit more challenging. So, you know, but there's something there for everyone.
Okay.
For sure.
And that brings us into, so how can people be or become diabetes resilient?
Good question. So I think the really important thing, you know, it's right about what you talk about, Fiona, which is cook, eat, nourish. Yeah. So and you know, going backwards on that, the nourishing part, it is really important. Like I mentioned, most people already have some complications, or their guts. You will find that most people, our gut bacteria, particularly those with type 2 diabetes, is always compromised. So nourishing yourself, to heal yourself, to get that gut bacteria balanced again, and to nourish all of our cells is massively important. And learning to cook. And I really feel strongly that it doesn't have to be fancy cooking. I think this is what turns a lot of people off. You know, I mean, sometimes in our house, when we're under time pressure, it can be throw broccoli and cauliflower on the steamer and a few other vegetables and saute them and throw them all on the table with, you know, hummus and pesto and olive oil. You know, simple stuff like that can be, you know, make a massive difference to your health, instead of having crackers and cheese, or, you know, something that isn't as nutritious. So learning to cook vegetables. I just can't stress enough the value of vegetables, and lots of different colours, and understanding, you know, I think the time has come, in truth. You know, most people know what their blood pressure is. Knowing what your blood sugar is also hugely valuable. So I would say the next time you go to your doctor, check your blood sugar, just to know it, so that you can monitor it. So then, in terms of becoming resilient, at least in the context of watching what it is and being more conscious of it, and thinking about sugar and understanding the foods that affect your blood sugar. Other things that feed into diabetes are if you don't do enough exercise. So really, that half an hour a day walk can make a massive difference. And movement. So a lot of people will go to the gym in the morning and they'll do a fantastic workout, and then they'll sit in their car, drive to work, sit at their desk for the day, sit in front of the telly for the night. So what you want to do is move as much as you can in the day, and that has all shown to help decrease your risk of type 2 diabetes. So movement, hugely important. Stress can increase your blood sugars. So again, we can't obviously change stress that might come into our lives, but we can change how we cope with it and how we deal with it, and just to be mindful of this, that it is affecting my health. We all kind of have these throwaway comments, "Oh, stress kills." It really does. And unfortunately, having consistent very high blood sugars and leading a life that's full of stress, eating the wrong food, not having enough sleep, not taking exercise and not looking after ourselves can have catastrophic effects. So it's not something to be taken lightly, and being conscious of all of that and trying to be as having an anti-diabetes lifestyle as possible will make us not only resilient to type 2 diabetes, should I add, but also you reduce your risks of many cancers and Alzheimer's disease and so many other diseases that are associated with inflammation and high blood sugar.
Okay, so we're talking about sleep and stress and movement, and going back to the foods for a minute, can you tell me some foods that would be blood sugar friendly and not so friendly?
For sure. Well, the most blood sugar friendly foods, without a doubt, like I said, vegetables. Now, if you want to be really pedantic about it, it's non-starchy vegetables, okay? So, no question, in terms of bang for buck or in terms of nutritional value, vegetables are going to be best for you. I would say next then would be berries, so fruit in general. So, again, it depends. If you already have type 2 diabetes, or if you know you're at high risk, then know what fruits you shouldn't eat, or what fruits might compromise your blood sugar, particularly if you're not taking medication, for instance. So bananas and pineapples, not so great. Berries, fantastic. And the larger fruits then, like apples, peaches, pears, would be the lowest in sugar. So they're all blood sugar friendly. Then fat, of course, will have very minimal effect on your blood sugar. So I'm a huge fan of eating lots of nuts, a good variety of nuts. I think the nuts that have been best researched when it comes to diabetes are walnuts, almonds, pecans, macadamias. So they're all good nuts that have good healthy fats. Seeds also, of course. Olive oil, a glug of olive oil, and it's really heart healthy, and you really have to mind your heart when you have diabetes. So that's going to not affect your blood sugar at all, and indeed will help to fill you too. So really, really great. And then of course eggs, another superfood for me. So switching, if you switch from a bowl of cereal, for instance, which is really not going to do your blood sugars any good at all, and instead you have eggs and spinach and some tomatoes in the morning.
Kimchi.
Absolutely, hugely. And as I mentioned, your gut, obviously your gut bacteria will also benefit from that. So, that will have minimal impact on your blood sugar. So looking at those foods, I would say try and avoid the toast, have the eggs, but not the toast, or at least be very mindful, without being dramatic. It depends too on where you're coming from, but to be really, really blood sugar friendly and to keep it as low as possible, and then I would say leave the toast out. And meat, if people eat meat, small amounts of meat, you don't have to eat meat every day, but small amounts of meat, again, that don't have a sauce on them. So this is the difference. It's about making your own food at home. If you do want sauce on it, you make it yourself, so that you make sure there's no added sugar, because there is in most of the sauces that we buy. So cooking yourself, watch Fiona's videos, and really, and make it simple.
Siobhan, you mentioned earlier about the potato, about baked potato. Do you want to explain to my audience there?
For sure. So I guess it was in the context, like I mentioned, about pineapples and bananas, and some people might be thinking, but they're they're fruit, should I say it? And yes, for sure, they are full of nutrition. But if you are prone to high blood sugars, if you have type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, then it will negatively affect your blood sugar. Baked potato in particular, it depends obviously on the size of the potato and on the potato, because its starch is a big issue. Also, your body, once you eat starch, once it's ingested, it feels like sugar to your body. It's the very same thing. So a baked potato can have the same effect on your blood sugar as 6 to 8 spoons of sugar, the exact same. So it's about looking at those types of foods. So for instance, a baked potato, I would say, is just know for people who have blood sugar issues, you can get that same nutrition in other foods, in other vegetables. So understand yourself and know what foods will affect your blood sugar and what foods are, have a lot of starch in them. And if you have to have some, just have a really, really small one, and make sure that you have lots and lots of vegetables with it that will slow down the release of sugar as it hits your bloodstream. So for instance, were you to have a small baked potato with lots of sautéed vegetables in it, then and they're good fibrous vegetables, so have some broccoli and have
kale and cabbage.
Exactly. Cauliflower. Sprouts. Yeah. All of that will slow down the rate at which the sugar will get into your bloodstream, because they're obviously high fibre vegetables. So getting a hold on all of this as well in terms of your whole meal. And then I would say, as a very simple guide for your plate, make sure you have an average size plate. Our plate sizes have got bigger, our portion sizes have got bigger. But regardless of the size of your plate, half of it in vegetables. Try and get into the habit of counting your vegetables. So looking on your plate and seeing how many vegetables you have, and the colours of them too, because actually that all makes a difference also. So as many colours as possible, and then have quarter your plate as protein. So perhaps a small piece of fish, of meat, beans, legumes, etc. And then some carbohydrate. Again, very important to understand the impact the carbohydrate will have on your blood sugar, and understand which ones you can tolerate and not. So for instance, again, getting back to the baked potato, brown rice, a lot of people will switch from white rice to brown rice, which is fantastic, but brown rice will have the same effect on blood sugar for many people, not for everyone. So it's about understanding yourself. So even if you do small portions, like no more than quarter your plate.
Okay, great. And so there's some recipes that I would have, like chocolate, orange and ginger cake, or recently I did the pumpkin bread.
Yes.
And you could use a substitute for sugar.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on something like, say, stevia? The stevia aerolite is usually what I would suggest.
Yeah, absolutely. And stevia is the one, without a doubt. I think stevia has no effect on your blood sugar. It has been shown to have some nutritional value. I mean, it's not a deal breaker, but for sure I would suggest for baking, stevia is a really good option. In general, I'm very apprehensive to suggest artificial sweeteners, and I would say to people, if there's anyone who's listening who's newly diagnosed or who's really trying to make an effort to come off sugar, to come off sugary foods, to stay away from all artificial sweeteners, even in the beginning stevia, because what you're trying to do is retrain your taste buds. So you want to get away from that sweet taste, and we're all hardwired, myself included. I'm very much hardwired to really enjoy sugar or sweet foods. So the first few days is always the hardest, and then it gets easier. So what you're trying to do is retrain your taste buds initially by staying away from all of them. But when it comes to some treat foods, or when it's special occasions, or when you do want to have something that does have to have a sweetener, and let's face it, most of us are cooking for a family also, so they will want a little bit of sweetness, so stevia is definitely the one to go with. A lot of the artificial sweeteners have been shown to have a negative effect on your gut bacteria, and also indeed some of them seem to have a negative impact even on blood sugar too, so just be very mindful of them.
Okay. So what I like to ask of all my guests is if you could give 3 tips that my audience could apply today to their daily life that would help improve the health of the nation. From your experience, what would that be?
Okay. So I think maybe I'll do a quick, pretty much everything I said. So I would say, first of all, my 3 S's for eliminating or cutting down or being conscious of all of the above, in fact, sugar, starch and stress. Be mindful. Start thinking about sugar content of food. When you pick up a scone, for instance, remind yourself there is sugar in this, there is starch in this. White flour, again, your body recognizes white flour as sugar. So always be mindful of what's sugary and what will affect your blood sugar. And stress, like I said earlier, not easy to avoid stress. We all have stress in our lives, but be mindful that stress can affect your blood sugar. So find something to do every day that will, be some mindfulness, a meditation, a walk, something you enjoy doing that will give you joy, basically, and bringing more joy into our lives definitely will have a positive effect. So that's the first thing. The second thing, so that's be mindful and minimize as best possible sugar, starch and stress. Then a variety of vibrant vegetables. So like I said, as many colours as possible on your plate. Different colours and different vegetables will all feed different colonies of our gut bacteria, and what we want for our immune system and for our overall health is to have all of those colonies well oiled. Absolutely, so they can mind us. So that really helps, and obviously there's different nutrients in all of those foods as well, so to your nourish, that's really important. So vegetables, if you do nothing else and you just really focus on increasing your vegetables, minimum of 5 a day, that will massively help your blood sugar. And the final thing I would say is exercise for energy, exercise for relieving stress, exercise for helping us to sleep better also, because incredibly, even in healthy people, it's been shown that if we don't sleep enough, that it can affect our insulin sensitivity and it can affect our blood sugar. So again, sleep is undervalued, and it really does underpin our health. So I think exercise and sleep go really well together, because people tend to sleep better if they exercise. Yes. And they feel so much better. So fantastic. If we get all of that right, we'll be doing well.
And tell us, what's next for Siobhan Dee? What do you have in the pipeline?
Yes, there's a couple of things. I'm working on a project at the moment with some doctors, and we're hoping to bring a new program to help people to live longer and stronger and have normal blood sugars. I also have a new online course that's starting, so if anybody wants to participate in that, please connect with me, and you put my website.
Yeah,
I'm sure. Thank you. And certainly, contact me. Of course, I have one-to-one slots that come up occasionally as well, where I do private coaching, and I'm doing many talks in organisations and interviews in general. So delighted. I really just want to, and this is World Diabetes Month, of course, so it's just really important that we get this message out that diabetes is avoidable, it's reversible, and it's really important that we understand what affects us in terms of our blood sugar, and that we do our best to keep it, to normalise it, and to do as much for ourselves as we can. So take ownership.
Fantastic. And one question I always like to ask people in my interviews is, what would you choose as your last meal?
Like my death row meal?
Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't have to be healthy then. Okay, yes, I'm going to go with fish and chips.
Okay.
Land and sea. Really proper potato chips and really fresh fish, but from a really good chipper, like we used to get when we were young at the seaside. Yeah. It just gives me, the memories, my childhood memories of being at Tramore or Ardmore on holidays when we were little, and from, at the day before we went home, we always got fish and chips in newspaper. Yeah, they were delicious. Lots of salt and vinegar.
Great.
And I'd have a glass of champagne with it.
Okay.
To celebrate.
Very nice. And any dessert?
Celebrate my life that was, not that I'm done. Might I add. Oh, dessert. Oh goodness, yeah. Ice cream is my weakness.
Okay.
I love actually Irish, the artisan ice creams that are made with really good cream, really good ingredients, just and Irish strawberries with it. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Sounds lovely. So just to finish up, would you mind letting my audience know exactly where they can find you, the website, social media, etc.?
Sure. So I go under Siobhan Dee, so it's Siobhandee, which is my surname. So SiobhanDee.com is my website, and I'm on Facebook, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. And yes, please connect with me and contact me, and if I can answer any questions, and if I can't, I'll certainly be able to point you in the right direction, so don't hesitate to contact me anytime.
Great. Thank you very much, Siobhan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please like and comment below. Why not check out my other videos, like all the seasonal updates that I have, or one of my really popular recipes like the amazing power bars that I always have in my goodie bags. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.